know where that went?
Bill, do you know where the little folder is, the binder is?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm one of those that needs to be scripted. My sister Christina is very good at speaking impromptu, but I don't have that gift, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. There they are.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
You don't need this, do you?
Yes, I do. Thank you. This is my crutch. Thank you. Nothing like a little bit of a wrinkle in the cord to get back on track. I'm Vicki. So I'm going to carry through a little bit more of the theme of Christina's, that Dad was a natural teacher. We often had what we called a moment of beauty, and it was very often on a Sunday evening before dinner. We would take turns, we'd share a song, a poem, maybe some moment of gratitude. And this is a tradition that many of us carried on with our children and even our grandchildren. Now, because Dad was a teacher, we were fortunate enough to take vacations together as a family every summer. Everywhere we went, whether it was the Grand Canyon or the Pueblos through Arizona and New Mexico, when it was 125 degrees outside, we always read each and every sign that educated us on the surrounding area. To this day, I am incapable of ignoring those signs, thanks to Dad, wherever we are. And I believe this to be true of all of us. As a side note, it gave us a love of learning, because Dad made it fun. Okay, we also groaned a lot when it was hot outside, but it gave us a great foundation and a yearn to learn. Because Dad taught at Montgomery Junior High, when one of his former students recognized the Clabby name, I could always tell who the good students were, because they said he was a great teacher and mentioned his sense of humor. When they said he was strict, maybe they were not the ideal students. So Dad had a great sense of humor. When we were growing up, he loved to tell jokes and puns, and my son Curtis and my grandson Max share that talent as well. And as teenagers, he liked to keep the mood fun, but his humor was not always appreciated because sometimes it hit a little close to home. But his laughter was contagious, and his jokes had a way of teaching a lesson, even while sprinkling the message with humor. Dad kept a small wooden carving about this big, had a little roof on it and a deck, and out of the deck came 4 little tacks. And the note on the little statue said, "This is a larger tax shelter," which was a funny play on words because Dad was a tax preparer. For Halloween, Dad would dress up as Dracula, and he'd hide behind the olive tree in our front yard, then jump out and scare the kids that were brave enough to come up to the front door to get their candy. Dad had quite a sense of humor on Halloween. Christina has a vivid memory of Dad putting bloody bones in the bathtub on Halloween night and shining a black light on it. Dad loved to take photos of all of us, and often it was during embarrassing moments. And Melinda and I have gone down in infamy over an image that was captured when we were waiting for the geysers to erupt at Yellowstone, where our impatience was clearly expressed on our faces. Some of those pictures were posted on a corkboard above the piano for everyone to see. And Carol remembers one of Christina's friends asking about an embarrassing photograph from when she was much younger. When Dad was a teacher at Montgomery, his answer to the frequency of students asking to go to the restroom during class was to paint a toilet seat bright orange with a note that read, "Mr. Clabby's potty pass," which had to be carried with them when heading to the restroom. It must have been quite the deterrent for asking to go to the restroom. But Dad always had a twinkle in his eye, much like his father, Nick Clabby. Dad was careful with his money, and he was organized, and also enjoyed life to the fullest. Our dad supported a family of 6 children on a teacher's salary. We ate dinner together as a family, and we each had a role in preparing the meal. Dad was very meticulous about details. When Mom and Dad went on vacation, they were careful to plan ahead down to the last detail. He tracked how much money they spent and picked one night each week to enjoy a nice meal. He kept track of every expense, and logs from past vacations were discovered after his passing. But I'm sure he allowed for a little bit of wine consumption along the way. Dad kept track of his mileage, and he taught us to do the same. He wrote down the odometer reading in a little log that he kept in the glove compartment. Every time he filled up the tank, he would write down the odometer reading and calculate the mileage. He recorded oil changes and other maintenance in this log as well. And this log was found in his convertible after he died, so this was a lifelong habit. Took me a long time to break, by the way. He also kept height and weight charts for all 6 of the kids and made predictions about how tall we would be. Luckily, he didn't track how much we would weigh, but that might have been a detail I missed. And it was to predict how tall we would be based on a formula. Unfortunately, the calculation was not quite an accurate predictor for me because I was supposed to be 5'10" and I'm 5'4" and shrinking. Our garage was a dream come true for those who thrive on organization. He kept baby food jars, each labeled, to organize the nuts, the screws, the washers, the nails, organized by size, so it would all be very easy to find. He even had that shop wood with the peg holes on the wall with an outline of each tool. That way, we all knew where the tools belonged so that it could be easily retrieved the next time it was needed. We all used the tools because we could not get our driver's license until we knew how to oil and lube a car and change a tire. And with 4 daughters, he saw the value that girls having these skills to work on cars was important, ahead of his time. And Melinda believes that having these skills gave her the confidence to try metalsmithing. When we started to drive, we were required to have a job or two so that we could pay for half of the car insurance. This taught us responsibility, and the lesson carried great value because we had skin in the game. Our parents supported the idea of living at home while going to college, and the deal was that they would pay for half of our college education if we lived at home. Of course, today is about our dad, but we all knew that our parents made financial decisions as a team. And people often ask, "What kind of childhood did you have?" And without question, my answer is always that it was a happy one. We learned the value of being organized, thrifty with our money, but we always knew how much we were loved. Now, Carol's going to talk about Dad's adventurous spirit.
Hi, I'm Carol. Dad had a very adventurous spirit. He was always curious about life, and he lived life to the fullest. His motto was, "All things in moderation, including moderation." Something he got from Father Sassoni if you were from this church. One of his favorite things to do was go to the desert. Whether on foot, motorcycle, Baja Bug, or Bronco, Dad loved exploring the desert. He and Mom would take several camping trips each year to Borrego in their motorhome, and they're often joined by family members or friends. He and my brother Jerry rode dirt bikes to explore old mines, fossil beds, or abandoned military installations. The desert was where he loved to be, and he always looked forward to those trips. Dad used to call the desert the great outdoor amphitheater. I remember fondly taking our family vacations every summer. As a teacher, Dad had summers off, so our family of 8 would pile in the station wagon and take a road trip that usually revolved around visits to see family in New Mexico, Idaho, or Washington State. We were gone 3 to 4 weeks at a time. We visited national parks and monuments. We saw relatives we never knew we had and enjoyed exploring the West. On the day we left on vacation, Dad insisted that we would leave at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning so that we could avoid driving through LA traffic and miss the smog. And somehow Mom managed to get us all in the car by that hour. We traveled with a trailer tent for many years, which we towed behind our station wagon. Dad trained the 6 of us to set it up. Of course he did, we had a team. We all had our assignments, and we worked together like a well-oiled machine. My sister Vicki remembers that Dad performed drills with us in our front yard and even timed us, striving for maximum efficiency. On a trip to the Grand Canyon, one time after we had learned all these skills, we arrived at our campground and each of us launched into our roles until the trailer tent was set up. The neighboring campers were astounded at this family of 6 kids who were so organized and efficient and helpful. Once the kids were grown, my parents traveled worldwide and visited every state in the U.S. except for Minnesota. Dad wanted to see as much of the world as he could, and he enjoyed knowing the history in each location. Dad was fascinated with aerospace and astronomy. He enjoyed learning about space exploration, from the moon landing and Apollo missions to the Hubble telescope and Mars landings. He was an expert at recognizing constellations, and he tested our knowledge whenever we were camping in the desert. Dad didn't shy away from challenges. He added on a family room and a master bedroom to our house. He read books on electrical and plumbing codes and drew up plans to build each addition. He said, "If Walt Becker can do it, so can I." And we were right there to help. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I remember my brother Bill and I sitting on the roof of the family room with Dad. He was over in the corner working on the saw, and Bill and I were hammering nails up on the roof. I'm sure Mom would never have approved if she had known. We always had very unusual pets thanks to Dad, the science teacher. We had snakes and mice that he brought home from his classroom during school breaks. We had mallard ducks, silky chickens, a desert tortoise named Daffodil, and even a saltwater aquarium. We even had a rooster for a while. Vicki brought home a runt chicken named Bubbles from her 4th grade class that laid eggs for us every single day for years. Dad loved chocolate. He never, ever passed up a chance to eat chocolate. And he loved going to See's Candy to buy a 2-pound box of chocolate, meticulously picking out each and every piece until the box was full. I'm proud to say that Dad ate chocolate ice cream at his last meal, and that's exactly the way he would have wanted it. Dad also enjoyed a glass of wine with dinner. At family dinners, he always had a smile on his face and a glass of wine in his hand. His favorite wine was Justin Isosceles, so Tom and I always brought a bottle to family celebrations. Tom would set the bottle of Justin in the middle of the dinner table to drink later with dinner, but we would catch Dad sneaking over to the table to pour a glass before we sat down. We noticed, Dad. The last 2 years of Dad's life were very meaningful to me. I got to know him on a completely different level. The strong, capable man I knew growing up was now a very different person, and I wanted him to feel understood. Dad suffered from dementia, and he was unable to communicate verbally well due to the impacts of a stroke. Talking was very challenging for him. He was only able to say a word or two at a time, and when he tried to speak, it often came out as one loud sound. But we always found a way to communicate. I would visit twice a week to spend time with him. We had several hours together doing exercises, reading, and writing shapes and letters. I was struck by Dad's strength and determination every single week. Exercise was always important to Dad, but even when it was difficult, he was focused and always tried really hard. With a few words of encouragement from me, Dad would push himself on the last few reps of an exercise, even when he was tired. I always praised him and encouraged his hard work and focus. After completing our exercises for the day, we would high-five, and I always got a smile out of him by saying, "You're done, Dad, great work." I'm sure he was happy it was over. After our exercises, we would sit and read together. Dad would start by reading a book to me slowly, one word at a time. It was extremely challenging for him, yet he read as far as he could handle, and then he would wave his hand like that at me, which was my cue to say I should take over. I often think how difficult it must have been for Dad not being able to express his feelings or needs because he couldn't speak. He understood everything we said to him, and he often responded with a head nod yes or no. We are fortunate that Dad's dementia still allowed him to recognize who we were each day. He knew the faces of his children and his grandchildren. He recognized old friends who visited that he hadn't seen in years, and he knew that we loved him. I saw it in his eyes, even when he struggled to say, "I love you." Dad, I always looked up to you as a child. You were so kind, loving, supportive, and you made life fun. Now that you're gone from this world, I will never forget you and how you made me feel. I know that you are up in heaven now, and you are free of these physical challenges. I imagine you were talking up a storm, telling jokes, and even holding a glass of wine in your hand. I love you, Dad. I miss you every day, but you are in my heart forever. So that concludes our eulogies, but we wanted to thank everybody for being here today. And please join us in the hall next door immediately following the Mass, where we will have some sandwiches and refreshments. And about 30 minutes after we get over to the hall, after you've gotten something to eat, we'll call everyone together for a slideshow of Dad's life and an opportunity for you to share any stories of him that you have. Please be sure to see some of the photos of Dad on display and sign the guest book if you haven't already. Thank you.
Yes, I'm